Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Another wonderful Enterprise Sage podcast. Always have interesting guests. Today we have Cheri Kyle with Ryan and Jacobs. Cheri has expertise in accounts receivable. When people don't pay their bills, when companies don't pay their bills, it can have a negative impact. So there are ways to be effective at that or less than effective. Usually, when it's less effective, it can significantly harm the company. So, thank you, Sherry, for joining us today. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
So, Sherry, I've always been curious. How does somebody get into the collection business, and how did you get into it, and why?
So I don't think anybody actually goes to career day in fourth grade saying, I want to work in collections when I grow up. I think I'm probably like everybody else. I just kind of fell into it. Um,
Okay.
I was looking for a job. Um, at the time, I was a single mom with four kids, and I just needed to make some money. I was just looking for a job.
Hmm.
And debt collection agency was the first one to reach out and offer me a position, and I said, "I need money, I'll take it." And so, honestly, I didn't think I would stay in the industry. I was like, "This is awful, I don't wanna do this, but this is what I have to do for now." And then the more I got into it, the passion kinda grew.
That's good. When one door closes, others open, right? And
That's the way it works.
opportunities are created.
Yeah.
So, how do you describe AR collections to people who are not familiar with it? And that's typically the business owners.
Um Really, I like to keep it simple for them because a lot of people, when they think AR, they don't really think about the fact that this is money sitting on the table that you've already worked for. You've already earned this money, right? So it's not just money that we could or couldn't have. This is money you've busted your tail end for already. So we're not really chasing people or companies down necessarily. We're really just finishing the transaction that's already taken place. We're right in the middle of it, and we just need to close that deal. So once you've delivered the value, whether it's a product, a service, or finished a project, we're just making sure whatever the value is that you've provided turns into the cash that you deserve.
Makes sense. You've earned it, might as well get it. All right, I got it.
I thought.
So, what are 3 things you want listeners to take away from our call today, our time today?
um, I think a lot. First of all, what I said previously, your receivables are actual revenue. It's not just
Mhm.
paperwork sitting on a desk. Um, I wouldn't walk into a company and clock in every day and then not get paid at the end of the week. That's not how that works. So, companies should have the same mindset. If I do the work, I deserve to get paid. Um, don't be afraid of a collection agency. We really haven't had a great reputation for quite a long time. But in all honesty, what we're doing is actually being more of an extension of your team as opposed to trying to come in and take over everything that you're already doing. Most companies actually already have at least a person or a team that's doing a great job. So it's not that they need their AR to be taken over necessarily. It's really that they just need support, and that's really kind of where I step in. Um, Time matters. Time. Don't sit on accounts. The sooner and I think this works with any issue and, in general, the sooner you address an issue, the more likely you are to resolve it. Exact same thing goes with AR. The quicker you get it to somebody like me, the more likely we are to recover it. You get your money and everything's over.
Okay. So, accounts receivable is a core financial function. It goes to the viability of every business. Late
Yes.
payments can do a lot of harm to the finances of companies.
Mhm.
It can put some out of business if it's a large payment and they don't have that many clients.
Mhm.
Knowing that some companies borrow money to cover the revenue that they should have collected is really expensive. Um, so even more so when a company has a limited number of customers,
Mhm.
and they are counting on those core customer relationships and the concentration. You got a concentration of payments with a small number of customers. A few late payments can really do a lot of harm. So,
Yeah.
from decades of working with business owners, one of the last things they want to do is take time to do collections or have people do it or escalate it up to the owners about past due bills.
Right.
And they're worried about losing the client. I got it, especially when it's a larger dollar amount and they have a concentration of customers.
Mhm.
So, what does a good receivables process look like before accounts become delinquent? How do you prevent this from happening?
So one of the things that you touched on that is 100% accurate is the relationship aspect, right? So, maybe you've been working with this company for 10 years and for the most part they've been really good about paying on time. You really haven't had an issue with them and then all of a sudden something goes bad and you just don't really know what's wrong. Um, the immediate thought process is don't push them too hard, you know, just give them plenty of time, to try to preserve that relationship. Actually, what I would say as far as a good receivables process, it's very proactive, it's not reactive. So, 1, you want your terms need to be clear upfront, right? Um, whether it's your contract agreement, what have you, your invoicing needs to be clean, clear, and concise. Uh, and then consistent follow up, but do it before the account actually goes delinquent. I think that's where a lot of companies they tend to shy away from reaching out prior to delinquency, and that's actually hurting the relationship, not helping it. Um, if you follow up, say your net 30 turns, right? And you follow up at day 15 and just say, "Hey, just want to bump this up to the top of your inbox, want to make sure, you're reminded." And then again at day 25, "Hey, just a reminder, your invoice is due in 5 days." Awesome. That's actually a benefit. It's not hurting because I can promise you there are plenty of um, companies that you're working with that get that email from you and they say, "Oh, shoot, I'm so glad they emailed me because I absolutely forgot about this one." So it's actually a benefit. And it really makes you as a business look like you're very professional and you're on top of business. And those are the people they want to work with. So it works both ways. I think really you hurt yourself more when you wait until after the delinquency's already occurred to follow up, because then they have the, well, shoot, I forgot. You didn't even bother to say anything kind of excuse to make.
Makes sense. So it's make sure your terms are out there, make sure they're
Mhm.
disclosed and understood, and it's setting the tone early and often. With a new
Exactly.
customer, you set it early, and then it's that process. It's not wait till it's late to do the call. It's a couple reminders
Right.
before it becomes late. So when do companies usually develop a good receivable process? Before the owner realizes it's costing them money, and reducing profits, or afterwards and they're spending money to chase money? When do companies usually develop one?
Unfortunately, after. It has to
Okay.
hurt first. I think human nature, we like to learn things the hard way. Um, I've been guilty of that personally myself. I know I used to tell my kids all the time, "Don't learn the hard way. Just listen. Please just listen to me." And companies are the same way, and um, sometimes it's due to rapid growth. A lot of times, a company all of a sudden will hit this really massive growth phase. Maybe
Mhm.
they weren't quite expecting it. And so before they know it, they're so far behind, they don't even know how they got there to begin with. Um, and if you set those processes in place from day one, you don't have to worry about it as much 5 years down the road. But yeah, I would say typically it's after they call me and then we discuss and we talk about, different ways to streamline their process internally that they're like, "Yeah, I probably should have done this already."
Okay. I'm just thinking of the fractional CFOs that we place into companies
Uh,
and their awareness. They raise the level of awareness about accounts receivable that it's literally
yeah.
costing you money to chase money. And if it's substantially late, it's going to negatively impact your cash flow.
Mhm.
So your client's problem has now become your problem and it's costing you money.
Yep.
Huh. Okay. So, what are some of the early warning signs that an account is going to become a problem? You've seen it enough times with the companies that you work with,
Yeah.
and yeah. So let's start. Let's just go down that. What are the early signs?
Typically, their communication changes. Something in the communication with that client changes. Um, Sometimes it's not necessarily just right there in your face. It's not that they just suddenly ghost you. Um, Although that is, definitely a sign. If you email and call and you suddenly can't get on the phone with them, then that's a huge red flag that this account's probably not going to be paid. But a lot of times it's stuff like, "Oh, we'll get that check in the mail next week." Next week comes and you don't have a check, and then you call again, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm waiting on XYZ company to pay me so I can pay you." Okay. So when those excuses start to pop up and you've heard 2 or 3 of them already, just let it go. You're not gonna get it. Um, but a lot of times, like I said, this isn't an overnight process. It's not always just like an immediate ghosting type
Uh-huh.
situation. You just have to kind of pay attention to what you're hearing from the client, um, and listen to those warning signs.
So you've got the AR staff, which could be internal or external,
Uh-huh.
and you've got maybe there's a full time CFO or a fractional CFO, and you got the CEO.
Uh-huh.
Is it roll up to the CEO typically is their problem they've gotta figure out? Or how does a CEO bring a team focus to this? Like, "Okay, if you hear these early warning signs, this is what your procedures are." Or do you just wing it when it shows up? What do you commonly see?
I mean, every every company's internal process is a little bit different, right?
Mhm.
So, exactly how far things go up the ladder really depends on each individual company. But one of the things that I find is maybe maybe the AR manager sees and hears the communication problems and they can already tell the account's not going to get paid. But then going back to the trying to preserve the relationship situation, there's this, I don't want to push them too hard. If I push them too hard, then my CEO is going to lose the relationship with the company, with the client. And then my CEO is going to be mad at me because I'm the one that pushed him too hard to begin with. Right. So I think just being upfront and honest, if you have, a CFO or fractional CFO, and just say, "Hey, look, this is where we are." Um, that way, if your internal process needs to be streamlined a little bit more, it needs to be more clear. Maybe you're just not strict enough with it. Your CFO can be fully aware that there's an issue somewhere and really kind of diagnose it and go from there. Um, but if the issues that are occurring aren't actually clear, um, there's no way to fix a problem.
Got it. So the team really needs to come together from the top down
Absolutely.
and figure
Absolutely.
out, so you've got the internal communications and agreements and understanding
Mhm,
that tie with the terms, and then you also have the external communication to the client. So
mhm,
I'm thinking the AR person calls the business is late on payment, something's going on. The business that owes the money goes back to the salesperson. Hey, can you get us some latitude? The CEO
mhm.
might be out of the loop. And you got this communication that's going on. So it feels like so what problems does a lack of communication cause and when? And what role does communication play in getting the invoices paid? And how can a company strengthen those and strengthen the client relationships? That's a lot to unpack there. So approach that however you'd like.
Communication is it.
Okay.
Most of your AR issues are communication issues to begin with.
Okay.
Either your agreement and your terms weren't clear enough, there was something on the invoice that didn't quite make sense. You're not being proactive when reaching out to these clients before the invoice is actually due to try to recover that prior to delinquency. So communication starts the problem, but
Mhm.
then communication is also going to fix the problem as well. So, and I think I said this earlier too, letting your clients know that you are organized, you are professional, and you're paying attention to what's going on in the company and what's going on specifically on the AR side. It's just going to be more beneficial to you and help strengthen that relationship, right? Um, People don't get offended when you're clear with them. They
Right.
get offended or even frustrated and angry when there's silence. There's no warning sign, and then all of a sudden I'm in collections. Why? You never said anything to me. I've been confused and I didn't know what happened. So communication, communication, communication on both sides.
So between the accounts payable and accounts receivable entities, right? As well as internal CEO, CFO, whoever else is in that mix, the AR person actually doing the collections. Okay.
Yeah,
And then what's the messaging to the client? That shouldn't be left up to chance or accident by the person making the call. It should be structured, it should be intentional, it should be repeatable.
right,
Okay. Got it.
right.
Communication. Communication by intention. So, here's the other part of this. At what point is it's just too long and, the chances of getting paid are really, really small? When does that happen? What's it look like? Is it just ghosting or
I think once you've been ghosted, it's a little too late sometimes. And
okay.
that can be incorrect too. Every single account is different. Every situation is different. So there's no one size fits all on AR. You can have somebody that you send an invoice to, and they ghost you from day one. Or you can have somebody that you talk to about this account for 6, 8 months, and then they ghost you. Either way, don't wait 6 to 8 months, please. Um, but honestly, the older an account gets, the harder it is to collect. Period. End of discussion. You can Google
Mhm.
it. You can Chat GPT it. It is what it is. Um, Priority shift within with your clients, so they're not as concerned about paying you as they are taking care of other things and spending that money elsewhere. People move on, so very likely that the person you've been reaching out to and you've been working with at ABC company that's been paying all these invoices for the last 10 years, maybe they're not there anymore, and the new
Well,
person doesn't even realize that there's something outstanding, right? um Companies run into cash flow issues. So maybe when you sent that invoice out, they were in good shape. But 6, 8 months later, now they're having financial issues. You should have gotten to it sooner. So there's a massive difference between 60 days and 6 months. And a lot can happen in that time frame. Um, so the longer you wait, the worse off you are. And like I said, there's so many different things that could happen,
mhm.
and it makes the issues worse, and sometimes it makes an account completely uncollectible. If a company goes bankrupt, dissolves, if there's a merger, that account can all of a sudden be absolutely uncollectible, and then there's nothing we can do.
So, we've been kinda talking about one-off situations, right? Where you've got maybe 1 or 2 bills that are outstanding with a particular company.
Mhm.
Um, but what does it look like when you see multiple vendors that or multiple customers that are not making the payments? So what are some of the common reasons that companies end up with not just 1 or 2, but a
Mm.
number of past due accounts? What does that look like?
Back to the process. It's usually the process. The internal process is not strict enough. Even if it's there and it's solidified on
Mhm,
paper, it's not being implemented the way it should be, right? Um, a lot of times too, if it I hate to say it's the people, and I'm not blaming anyone.
mhm.
this is just sometimes the situation you fall into. We've got Becky at ABC Company who sent me this invoice, and I know all I have to do. Becky and I have been working together for a long time, right? And I know I can call her and say, "Hey, Becky, I know I have this invoice due. Just I need another week or so," right? And Becky really likes me, so Becky's going to give me that week. And then the next week, I can call her back and say, "I know I said I was going to pay you this week, but it's going to be next week instead." But Becky and I are friends, so she's going to give me more time. And Becky's going to keep giving time. Um, and that again goes back to that strict internal process. You've already blown me off 2 weeks in a row. I'm not letting you do it again. So that's part of it. Um, Sending invoices out late. I've actually seen that quite a bit. Shockingly, invoices go out late. If you have net 30 terms, but your client doesn't get the invoice until 15 days in, then that kind of not really fair to the client, right? Um,
Yeah.
if there's a dispute, don't let them sit. If there a lot of times you'll have a situation where it's $150 charge on the invoice that's being disputed. Take care of it, handle it, communicate with the client, and get it resolved. Um, Internal teams are busy. They've got a lot on their plate. Um, I know AR is typically one of the very first things to kind of be put on the back burner, so to speak, in business. A lot of times that's because there's not really an AR team as
Mhm.
much as there is an office manager who's wearing 15 different hats, has 15 different responsibilities, and AR is the first one she's going to throw to the side. Right? So,
Okay.
that's a few things. I could
Yeah.
list forever, but yeah.
I'm just thinking of a few sayings that come to mind in sales. Time kills all deals, right?
Yeah,
And in collections, time kills all money.
yeah, it
It
kills
just
your
it
revenue.
it just works the disadvantage. And
Yeah,
then, for the CEOs that are hearing this, people work perfectly in the systems that they're given,
uh-huh,
and the CEO or the leadership of the management gives people those systems. So, if
yeah,
there's an AR problem, it's not necessarily the person, good
right,
people, but in a bad system, systems come from the top.
yeah,
And if you need help as a CEO putting it together, usually the people closest to the problem are the ones closest to the solution. So those are a
definitely.
couple sayings that can help. Here's an interesting one. Um, a lot of companies treat collections as the last resort.
Mhm.
How can it be seen as a revenue strategy instead? From the top down, right? From the CEO, CFO, and the AR person, and the office manager, if they're the one doing the air. How is it seen as a revenue strategy?
How can it not be seen as a revenue strategy? I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
it shocks me that it's not typically seen as a revenue strategy. This is earned revenue. It's money you've already made. So how is it not a revenue strategy? It is a revenue strategy. You've done the work, but you haven't been paid yet. Um, why do you want to sit on that? It would make me so angry to not get paid for the job I'm doing every day. But
Mhm.
these companies will sit there and just say, "Oh, well, we just didn't get this one." Why? I don't understand. Um, I think a lot of times the companies will focus on new sales or new project, new business,
Right.
depending on what your industry is. And so then they just kind of ignore what's sitting right there on the table when that money needs to be taken off the table and put in their bank account. Um, it's like I said earlier, it's not about chasing money, it's about completing the sale. Just close that deal up and let's be done. So yeah, I don't know how. I would love to be able to change the mindset of
Mhm.
collections so that people do understand it is a revenue strategy and it's one of the most important ones you have.
In a way, having that uncomfortable conversation is like the monster under the bed to a kid. You can look under the bed, there's no monster there, it's not gonna hurt you. Reach out,
Right.
have the conversation, have it with confidence, write down what you're gonna say ahead of time, cover the points, have your facts ready, and then work with your team that's gonna work on the receivables so they have a process to work within.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So,
And a lot of times it's just there's kind of a fear factor there, to be honest. It's if you don't know what you don't know, right?
right.
And, if you don't really know or understand what a good AR process looks like, and but you do understand that you're struggling on the AR side, sometimes it's that vulnerability coming out and saying, "Well, I don't really wanna ask for help. I should know how to do this." Right? We all need help. We all have things that we're weak in. We have strengths, we have weaknesses. Um, so working toward that goal of making it more of a strength than a weakness is really where you're gonna win.
Huh. Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, so what's the biggest mistake you see companies make when trying to collect on their own versus, they have their internal experiences that may not be perfected over time. They may not be as effective as they could be. So again, what's the biggest mistakes that you see companies when they're trying to do this and they just don't have the experience that you have?
Typically, waiting too long on an account, obviously, we discussed that one earlier. Time is a killer in AR, and those inconsistencies in the process. Maybe you have a process laid out where it's I call every 3 days, right? Or I call them every day, whatever your internal process is, but it's not followed the way it should be. Those are, I think, two of the biggest issues I've seen. Waiting too long, having too much faith in the clients that obviously haven't paid you for 90 days. So why are they going to pay you on day 91? um, and yeah, following up once, letting it sit for a while. Oh, well, I followed up 3 times in a year. But, you
Oh,
have to have that structure, if you're gonna get anywhere. I mean, that's honestly, that's how we do things and how we're as successful as we are at Ryan and Jacobs. It's that consistency, and following that structured process. Um, and if you don't have an AR team, a lot of times it just won't get done. So if there's not somebody that's assigned as an AR account, an AR manager or what have you, it likely just won't get done at all.
that makes sense. See, I'm just thinking you've got the salesperson, they're talking to the accounting person or the office manager who's responsible with it. Salesperson's talking up the client opportunity, and they just don't want to damage that relationship.
Mhm.
So they'll keep doing more work and probably end up with more invoices that are late and not getting paid, and it just snowballs until somebody says, "Wait a minute, stop! What's going on here?" So, take into consideration all the insight that you've provided so far. And there's still more questions coming to mind for me. What have you found is the most effective approach to not burning those bridges? Because when you guys take
Mhm.
care of it externally, right? You're conscious. I mean, you're just not going to go in there and hammer the payee, right? You're aware there's a relationship there. So
Right.
how do you do that without burning the bridges?
Um, well, first of all, that's one of the biggest rebuttals I get when I'm talking to potential clients is no, I'm not going to hire an agency because I like the people I work with and I want to keep working with them.
Mhm.
So it's something we struggle with, but again, the reputation that agencies used to have, is still kinda sitting with us, and we're really working hard to turn that around. But for us, it's about tone and it's about strategy. Um, Kinda like with my kids, if I have one I have 4 of them. One of them can disobey, and I know exactly how I need to deal with that one. This one disobeys. I have to deal with this one a little bit differently. They're not
Mhm.
the same child. Collections is the same way. So you don't have the same approach on every account. Some of them just need that consistent follow up. Some of them, it's just third party shell shock. It's one of my
Oh.
uh, favorite phrases in the industry. Third party shell shock, and it works. Especially when you've been that company that, um, loves to talk to Becky at
Mhm.
ABC office because I know I can push her back and she's not gonna force me to pay her this week, right? Um, I push Becky back and I push her back and I push her back. And then all of a sudden, Craig calls from Ryan and Jacobs. And I'm like, whoa, okay. That changes the tone immediately. It has nothing to do with being ugly. It
Mhm.
has nothing to do with screaming and yelling, which apparently some people think we do. Um, it's just a tone changer. The communication is going to change instantaneously. Um, and sometimes that's all they need. It's like, okay, I guess Becky kind of got tired of me pushing her around. So I should probably pay this bill now. Um, and sometimes that's all it takes. And then others we kind of have to put our gloves on and fight a little bit for. Um, but we really pay attention to the debtor themselves,
Mhm.
their specific situation. We listen first, right? We want to hear what their situation is before we start uh, trying to resolve the situation because we need to know how to do that. And then the client's preference is huge. We can, yeah, have clients that say, "Look, I don't ever want to work with these guys again. Lay the hammer down. I don't care." And then we have others that say, "No, on this one, I need you to be a little more diplomatic." We got it. So it's really just all kind of what the client prefers, and sometimes that changes from account to account. But overall, you can be firm and still be professional. Um, I think just like in any working relationship or a friendship, sometimes the truth hurts, and your good friends are the ones that come and tell you the actual truth when it doesn't feel good, and that's kind of where we fall in.
Huh. So how do you don't just take over all the ARs, but there's problem ARs. So how do you work alongside of the internal teams without stepping on toes?
We we're really an extension. Right.
Okay.
So most of the companies I work with have a great AR team. They have wonderful people working for them and they're doing a wonderful job. Um, so it's not that they have this huge AR issue. It's just that there are always going to be a few accounts here and there that slip through the cracks for whatever reason. Usually there are multiple reasons. Uh, but what we do is say, okay, look, you've handled this long enough. It's
Mhm.
not working on your end. We'll kind of take it from there. And that goes back to that process. Okay, internally, they've sent out the invoice. They've been proactive about sending reminders. To their clients to pay. Okay, now we're delinquent. We've reached out for the last 3 weeks, 30 days. They're delinquent, probably 60 days at this point. We've done enough. It's time to pass it on. The AR team's busy enough that that one account isn't the only one they're trying to fight with. So, really kind of determining what mark, for each company they wanna just kinda wash their hands of it, um, is that's the key. For some companies, it's day of delinquency, it's yours. There are some that say, we want you to take all of our AR. And then there are others that say, no, my team's great. We just have two or three a month that we struggle with. That's awesome too. So, however they want us to handle it, we'll work with them. The goal is really just to be that support system for them so they
Mhm.
don't feel like we're trying to take over because ultimately we're not.
So at Ryan and Jacobs, because your company's done this hundreds of thousands of times, right?
Yeah.
It's not only the collections, but you've worked with tens of thousands of different companies. You know what works, right? And you have different strategies that an internal team probably doesn't have the experience with, and then how to execute on those strategies. So, at what point should a company stop trying internally to do this because it's working, but it's really not working? At what point do they bring in Ryan and Jacobs?
60 to 90 days. That would be
Okay.
that would be my advice. And, some companies are gonna take it and some aren't. But, if you haven't collected it in 90 days and they are still giving excuse after excuse,
Hmm.
nothing's changing. They're just pulling you along at this point.
Okay. Hmm.
And also
So,
you want to eliminate the potential for other issues to come into play. Um, Accounts or finances that have been moved to another account to try to hide them. So when we do call, we can't find their assets anymore. That's something people don't even think about. A lot of times these companies that owe money, they owe you money and they owe you money and they owe you money and they owe you money. And they're constantly moving money and moving assets so they don't have to pay. If you catch them in time, you can grab it.
Mm.
Um, but that's one of the ways the shysters work to try to keep from paying bills, and it works if you don't jump on it fast enough.
So one of the companies that uh, we introduced to clients, they produce something that's called a dirt sheet.
Uh-huh.
And literally, it mines all kinds of data about companies, how many lawsuits they have, right?
Mhm.
Just a lot of information.
Yeah.
Does your company start by pulling credit reports or lawsuits or anything else like that about the debtors,
Yeah,
just as a
we
starting
can
place?
so our CEO, Liz Rios, is actually a private investigator.
Okay.
Um, this woman can tell you when the last time your debtor went to church on a Sunday morning. She can find out anything. It's kind of insane, but yeah, I mean, we do the same thing for companies. We can find out any and everything about them.
Hmm.
Um, so one of the things that I like to do, if I can get a name of a debtor and just say, "Hey, look, let me look in my database and see what I can find out. Are they here? Oh, shoot, they've actually been listed as a debtor with us before already." So that actually happened to me a couple of days ago. Somebody mentioned one of their debtors, and I'm like, "Yeah, we've already had them in here."
Yeah, and here's probably what's going to happen. Yeah. Okay. So that's internal intelligence. That's highly valuable, and you can
It's
bring that
it's
value to your
valuable.
clients.
Yeah, it's valuable for, our clients as well, though, right? It's not just valuable for us trying to collect the account, it's valuable for
Mhm.
the clients too, so they're aware of who they're working with. One of the biggest things that I like to tell people is, I know credit checks cost money, do it anyway.
They
Uh,
save money.
you're
Yeah.
gonna yes, you're gonna spend a little bit of money to save, a ton of money in the long run, uh, because the money that they're gonna end up being delinquent is going to be way more than maybe $250?
Got it. So that's somebody calling you to give you money.
I wish.
So
That was
what?
actually my work phone.
Okay. Wh- What's the hardest part of what you do and why?
I think the hardest part for me is working really hard to educate a client and
Hmm.
not being able to get through. Um,
Hmm.
you know, do I know am I the smartest person in the world? No. But when it comes to your accounts and what you should be doing with them internally, I know what I'm doing. Right. Um, and it's really easy for clients sometimes to feel like because they own the business and those are their clients, they feel like they know best. And sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. And that's, I think, the frustrating part for me. That and just the timing. When I have a client who is just consistently sending accounts in at 6 months, 8 months, a year old,
Mm.
it's just like, stop. Then they're frustrated if we don't collect them. Like, well, I'm sorry, we can only do so much with what we have, right? So if you want our success rate to be higher, you need to actually listen and let's get some things figured out. And it's hard. It's hard sometimes to give up that control to somebody that you don't know you can trust yet.
Hmm. So it seems like your clients, or before they become your clients, can unknowingly disadvantage themselves and not even know it.
Yeah, exactly. Because they want to do everything themselves, right? And it's sometimes it's hard to ask for help. And I get that. Again,
Mhm.
human nature, when we're struggling with something, we get vulnerable, and those vulnerabilities are really hard to express and just kind of throw out there, right? Um, so we don't necessarily want to admit that we want help. And that's okay. It's intimidating. It makes us feel weak. So they're trying to protect relationships, or they're trying to save money, right? I want to handle this internally because I don't want to pay Ryan and Jacobs. But what happens is you're spending more money in payroll and lost recovery than you would end up paying me to begin with.
Reminds me of a, saying that in the absence of understanding value, most often the only consideration is price. So when you understand the value of what you bring, it's not about the price you pay, it's what you're
Right.
getting.
Exactly. It's the value, over the price, and I would much rather spend a little bit more. If I'm gonna get a new car, sometimes I'd rather get the little bit higher trim package just because I like it better, and I'm gonna spend a little bit more because that value's worth it to me.
Right.
And one of the things I try to tell people, they're like, "Oh, well, I don't wanna pay you 25% or 30%, whatever our rate is. I don't wanna pay you that." And I'm like, "Well, right now you've got 0.
Mhm.
So you can take 0 or you can take 75%, which is better. I would take 75% over nothing any day of the week. I'd take 50% over nothing any day of the week. But getting that mindset to switch sometimes can be difficult.
And it's the cost of not having processes, procedures, follow through,
Mhm.
follow up, expectation setting, set them
Yeah.
early, set it often. So what are 3 things you wish every business owner knew about AR and collections? Because we covered a lot here, but if you
We
distill it down
did.
to 3 things, what would those 3 things be?
Don't be afraid of an agency because I think that's the issue so many companies have is it's just that I don't want to hire an agency. I don't want to have to go down that road. And part of it's because of debt collections reputation in general. Part of it's because they don't like to ask for help. Um, but don't be afraid of us. We're not here to take over. We're not here because you've done something wrong. We're not here to berate you as a client. We're just here to help you, And maybe it's kind of embarrassing to call us and be like, "Yeah, I've got $2 million in AR and I don't even know what happened, and I'm the CFO." Right? But that's okay. We can fix it. Well, we can't fix something we don't know anything about. So just call. Let us know if you need help, reach out to somebody that can help you. Um, time, get the accounts in sooner rather than later. I would rather have an account too early than not have it early enough. Um, Another thing sometimes people don't realize is just because you've written an account off doesn't mean it's uncollectible. We can
Mhm.
chase those as well. Um, And I hear that a lot. Well, we had so and so win such a percentage of AR, but we already wrote that off. So there's nothing we can do about it. Yes, you can. Write it off and send it to me. But a lot of times people will write off accounts and then just that's it. Nothing's done with them anymore.
It seems like an acceptable cost of doing business, but there are other options.
There are. Yeah.
So I'm curious, what's the most rewarding part of what you do and why?
Ooh. Seeing the end result. And, watching these businesses that come to me and I can hear the stress in their voice.
Mhm.
I can hear the frustration. And then working with them and recovering some of these accounts and knowing I helped do that. We helped get them to where they are now, and I can hear the change, just the change in their voice. There's a little pep in their step now and a little pep in their voice when I talk to them on the phone. And I'm a very relationship based person. So for me, a client is extremely important. It's a relationship for me. A client isn't just something that brings in a paycheck for me. Um, I want to get to know you. I want to know who your kids are. I want to know how many dogs you have. That's just how I work. And so to see that transition from super stressed out because we're in trouble to I can finally breathe,
Mhm.
is that's I love it. That's the best.
Okay. Last question comes to mind. This is one of my favorite ones. What life advice impacted you the most? And it doesn't need to be about, what you're doing now. Or what advice would you share with our listeners? Or both?
So this one is impacting me currently, and it's something I heard from quite a few people over probably the last year or so,
Mhm.
and I finally did it. Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Oh.
So wherever you are right now, if you are content, but you can't say you're happy, change something. If you're in a work situation, business, it's the same thing. We can take it back to AR. If your AR process doesn't change, then your AR situation is not going to change. But specifically in life, I'd tell my kids that too. If you're not happy, change something because nothing's going to change unless you do.
Got it. Um, Anything else that you'd like to cover on the call today or ask or anything else?
I wa- I really want to know that dog's name in the background in your picture.
Well,
That's my focus. I'm just sitting here staring at the dog.
yeah, uh, she was our 12-year-old husky,
Oh.
and we intentionally trained her. She knew over 100 words. She knew
Wow.
to stop at every intersection and look both ways, and if there was a car coming, she wouldn't move forward. Just a great companion, and, it's interesting having a dog that actually knows that many words and a whole lot more,
Yeah, I
and
can't
can
imagine.
and she's a husky, so she would talk, right?
Uh-huh.
So we'd go out for our walks every day, a couple times a day, and she'd come up to somebody, and she would always wanna talk to them as a not howling, not barking, but talking,
Uh-huh.
and she could carry on a conversation with them. She basically learned on her own how to as close as she could repeat what people were saying.
I love that's incredible. I have a husky. He does not talk, but, well, yeah, I love my husky. He does the first Wednesday of every month,
Mhm.
our tornado sirens are tested,
Oh, yes.
and there's one not fa it's pretty close to our house, so it's significantly loud. And so he's sitting out in the backyard and he starts to howl as soon as they start. And then my mastiff starts to howl. And then my Connie Corso starts to howl. And then my little
Okay.
one inside the house starts to howl. And before you know it, you've got all these dogs howling with the sirens. It's so cute.
You got a howling good time.
Uh, Absolutely. Sometimes I just join in.
There we go. So, Sherry, appreciate your time today. It's been wonderful to get to know you and the information and the wonderful things that you can do for companies. How should people get in contact with you?
LinkedIn, I'm absolutely on LinkedIn all the time. I can give you my direct line. My number is 972-954-5513. My email address is very easy. It's Cheri, Cheri, at ryanandjacobs, all spelled out.com.
Excellent. Sherry, it's been wonderful today. Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much for having me, Craig. I appreciate it.